Hey, you nut job. What are you doing?
I'm doing a nut job.
Oh.
On Whitey. What a beautiful guitar, huh? Look at his waterfall grains through the titanium white see-through.
It's got those
reflections.
Well,
you got the light on it.
A bit light, yeah.
Here, try that. I don't know if that's any better with the...
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah. Look at this. What a beauty, huh?
Sure is.
Quarter sawn, sugar maple neck. Anyway, enough with this guitar. Okay, this guitar is at the point of being ready for a nut. This isn't some kit parts guitar. This is a guitar that I build off of my templates that are like on the railroad tracks. So the lineup is perfect on everything. And why am I making a video on making a nut? Well, first of all, I know people who've been doing this as long as me, if not longer, that still can't space 6 strings on a nut. Okay, and they just keep doing it the wrong way. Beginners don't have a chance. Now, so we're going to call this video "How to Space a Nut." I'm not going to show you how to make a whole nut. There's a whole lot to that. This video is for more advanced people that already know how to make a nut, but aren't sure about their spacing, because they never are, because I can look at their nuts and tell you that they're never spaced properly.
That sounds
okay. So anyway, it's just the way it is. So we're going to start with the assumption that you know how to make a nut. For instance, okay, this is the next one that would go up for the nut, so that I can't take it off of that one because the strings are putting pressure on that one. So this is a beauty, huh? Okay, so
that sketch.
Yeah, we're going to assume you already know how to do this. Shape this from a square nut so it fits nice and tight. It's perfect on both sides. It's tilted back here. It has the perfect radius that this has, but tilted. Why do you tilt your radius? Well, because the thicker strings are taller. So when you're done and they're all cut to the exact height, which is a whole nother subject, you're then going to shape the top of this nut. And that's a whole nother subject too, you know. Some people don't leave enough, and some people, you know, take too much off, and some people leave too much, okay? Depending on the guitar player, a guy that uses 8s and plays like little baby stuff, that they can have the nuts just sitting in a detent slot. But you hand that guitar to a player that plays big strings and is very forceful down here, they're going to snap them right out of the nut and probably crack the nut on the way out. So that's a whole nother subject. I'm not going to get into all that. This video is about spacing a nut, okay? Because it's complicated enough. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you is, when I show you how to mechanically and mathematically space a nut, the execution of that job is on you, okay? It takes practice. You got to have some skills with your hands and your eyes, okay? But, you know, you're going to come to like measurements where, okay, well, now you got to make a slot. You got to stay at that measurement, and that's your mechanical ability. So there's always problems in making a nut that aren't perfect, that rely on what you can do with your hands and your eyes. So if you don't know how to measure one to begin with, you got a real mess when you're done, okay? So let's start by saying a graduated nut is garbage. I will never make one. You'll never see that here. I think it's the stupidest thing besides a compound radius fretboard. It's a gimmick. When you play a guitar, your fingers come down in the middle of the strings. Your fingers don't give a flying you know what about the space between the strings, like how big this space is. If a graduated nut was proper, then your bridge would be graduated. Your bridge is 6 even spaces, because that's how your mind thinks when you play chords and stuff like that, okay? So the only real rule in guitar stuff like this is what you like the best is what's right, not what I like the best. So when I tell you it's garbage here. I'll never do it. If you love graduated nuts, you could probably still learn something from this video, or maybe not, but we're not going to talk about that, okay? So this kind of tool here is another piece of garbage. It's sold from that catalog that
What's it called?
newspaper magazine. This is a graduated nut spacer. So let's say, oh, well, Bob, what if this wasn't graduated, which you can't find one anywhere, but what if it wasn't? Wouldn't that just work and I can just transfer the slots? No, that won't work for shit, because when you do this across your radius, those slots are no longer where they were supposed to be, okay? So you say, oh, well, I won't radius the nut, I'll keep the nut flat and then mark it. Well, that's okay, but then what happens is those two outside parts of your nut are way up. So you've got to bring those slots way down to get that guitar playing right to adjust them before you carve the top of that nut back, right? Well, that's a lot of chance to be doing this with your file. And you can't be doing this with your file to get a perfect nut, okay? And trust me, 14 years old to 65 years old, I've been making these things, and I know the mistakes you can make by going down too far. And when I tell you, save yourself a lot of aggravation and make sure that you've radiused it and tilted your radius, obviously, for the bigger string, just like you do when you set up your bridge, then it's the better way to do it. But how do you mark 6 even spaces? Transferring with a pencil, that's never right. It's never accurate. How do you even measure it? Okay? So this is what I want to show you, is a foolproof way. Forget the graduated bullshit, okay? 6 even spaces. Now, how did Mr. D'Angelico mark a nut? Okay? And many guys I've known over the years and still know now that have built thousands of guitars, you know what they do? I'm going to show you what they do. They just take the 6 strings on there and move them around on the top of the nut, like these are all loose here, right? They move them around till it looks good, and they go, oh, okay. And then they hold it here, and they smack that string right there to put a tiny little mark in it, to have that exact spot marked for them, right? Then they take the strings off, and they file them, and do all this work and all this, and then when they're done, it's an inaccurate nut. It's just, well, it looked good, you know. People have been playing guitars like that for many, many years, okay, and they're fine with it. So it's not, everything's not 100% necessary to know, you know. But if you're gonna want to build a perfect guitar, like this guitar is a perfect guitar, it's built like on railroad tracks, then you're going to want to know how to do it. I'm going to tell you the first thing you need to check. You're working on a kit guitar. The body comes from one company, the neck comes, it's just a mess, right? If the string lineup ain't right at the base of the neck and the bridge isn't level with the frets, okay, then you're going to have a problem doing the first thing you have to do this, which is to line up your 2 outside strings. Because that's the first thing that is something you really don't need to measure. But then from that point on, I'm going to show you all the measurements, okay? So if your guitar's a mess there, try to fix that first. And sometimes you won't be able to, because the guitar is just a pile of crap. It's just a bunch of parts. It's not funny. It's people do this all day long and then wonder why the guitar plays like shit when they're done, okay? First of all, Mr. Fender pulling a neck this way or that way because he left 40 thousandths in the pocket. Yeah, that ain't, especially a tremolo. If a tremolo's going like this, boy, it better be straight with the neck and the frets, or the saddles are going to be walking around like this, you know. So try to get that right first, okay? And now, so we're going to use a calculator, a vernier caliper, and your skills. That's what we're going to use, okay? So, and your skills are every bit as important as that, your mechanical skills to execute this properly. Okay, so let's start with you coming in after I've already done some, okay? These inside strings, nothing's been done. They're just on, they're loose, okay? These 2 have been detented into a very light detent slot, okay? Now, why are they where they're at? Okay, well, from your experience of playing, you're going to have to come to a decision of, what I start with is 125 from the edge of this to the center of this string. Now, that you can't put 125 to the center of this to that, because then this string will look like that on the edge of the fingerboard, because this is a thicker string. So the thickness of this string has to be mathematically done here. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. So you say, okay, 125. Let's set this one first. So we won't even use a vernier caliper to set that, because I'm going to tell you what, setting these outside ones is the least, oh, here it is the least of your accuracy, because I'm going to explain why, because you're gonna move these around. So if I came in here and I knew where 125 was, and I did that, and then I know this would be like 144, because not 125, because this is 48 thousandths, this string's 11 thousandths. So you would take half of this number, which is 24 thousandths, and then subtract half of this, which
If it's
is
44, half is 22.
5.5 thousandths, and you know that this string would have to go in that much more than 125. Okay, that's fancy math, and I do use that, but in the end, forget these, okay? When I get these where they look perfect to me, okay, and they're just sitting on there like these are, the next thing I'm going to do is take this guitar and go put it on a stand and sit in front of it and stare at that to know that that's looking right, because this is dead on. It's railed, okay? This is not the exact measurement from center as that is, because of the same reason, and that's in all my math of my templates. That's exactly where I want those two strings, okay? So you come up here, and every neck is sanded a little bit different when it comes up here by a couple of thousandths. So you really can't just buy a nut that's pre-made, all right? Because of a lot of reasons. If you don't understand that by now, then this video isn't going to help you much. But so anyway, you get these two where you think you want them. You go put it on a stand, and you sit in front of it, and you stare at it, and you go, no, 125 is too much on this guitar. I'm going to bring it out a little bit, like I did here. So you bring it out a little bit, and you bring this one out to match, and you go, you know what, that looks perfect. You stare at it for a while. Now you take something like this. Let me show you this. This is a artist pencil, a very, very thin tip, okay? And I'm going to put this string where no string would go, just to show you this. Over here, and you did that, okay? Then you would have two perfect lines. I'm just showing you how to cut a string. We're not measuring anything yet, okay? So you would have the two perfect lines. Now, this is what I'm talking about. If you were to go cut this slot, it was this one and this one. You better get that dead in the center of that. And the best way to do that is to find the file that's the exact size. So when you're in there, you can just see, and this one's too big for that, but you could just see the two outside lines. And just get a notch in there to hold the string, like that. Just a notch to hold the string. These are a little more than that because they're perfect. But before these were perfect, I put just a tiny notch, right? Then I took it back, put it on a stand, looked at it again. Did anything move when I did that? No, it was perfect. If it did, say this one was in too far, okay, by the tiniest bit. Well, since you just put a tiny notch, you just sand that and redo that one, okay? Nothing's final if you just do that tiny notch first. Now, when you know these are right, make the notch just deep enough to hold them good, okay? Now, if you said to somebody, like, if say, I'm going to tell you to think like a machinist, okay? Say a machinist was in here and he doesn't even know what guitar is or how to play one. Doesn't even know you call them strings. He thinks they're steel wires, right? And you said to him, sir, how would I know the measurement between each one of these strings? And he would say, well, what do you want to know? The measurement between this one and this one, or this one and this one? Or, well, I want to know the measurement on center between all of them. He'd say, oh, well, that's simple. I'll show you how to do that. What would he do? Well, what he would do is he would take this caliper, okay? I have it set for something. Well, I'm going to lose that setting then, okay? And he would zero, make sure it's zero. Close it good and firmly, make sure it's on zero, okay? Then he would measure that outside rope or wire, whatever he calls it, and it would measure 48 thousandths, right? Then he would go over to the high E string, and he would measure that one, and it's 11 thousandths. Now, depending on what it is on your gauge of strings, within reason, it's going to be the same math, okay? So he's got 48 thousandths and 11 thousandths. So how does, you said, well, why didn't he just do this? Why didn't he just take this thing, if he wanted to find the center of these two strings, and find it? Because that's not how these tools work. I don't give a shit how good your eyes are. You can't find the center of that string, let alone that string, okay? And that's not how this tool works. The way this tool works is when you're measuring the inside distance of something, okay, you use this until it stops. That's exactly 171 thousandths, okay? If you were measuring the outside of this, you use these two blades, okay? You don't see, this isn't a ruler, some, terrible accuracy thing. This is an exact accuracy thing. You use the blades. The other part of that measurement is this. If you were measuring something like this, and you wanted to know how tall this was, but you wanted to do it this way, and you want to know how tall it was from right here, you would go like that, okay? So you have 3 measurement places on a tool like this, and they're all exact because they touch something. So what did he do? He measured these 2 strings, but how did he measure them? I'm going to show you. He knows there's a radius on this, and he knows there's a radius on this board. He cannot measure across the top of the radius anyway. So he sets this fairly even on the inside edge of that. Make sure this isn't cocked real bad one way or the other, because you'll go off by more than 1,000ths. And he stops that there, and 1.475. Okay? Well, now how can he tell me the center of all those strings from this measurement? Well, I'm going to tell you how. He knows that the low E is 48 thousandths, right? So he knows half of that 48 thousandths is 24 thousandths. He knows that the high E is 11.5 thousandths. It's 11 thousandths. Half of that is 5.5 thousandths. If you add this number and that number, you get this number. Now, this is for this guitar I'm doing. So you see the difference of one guitar to another with the neck off the same exact jig just from hand sanding? 1.482. You can't see the difference in that, okay, or feel it, but it's there. So we're going to use this one for the math now. So it's 1.482. Add the 29.5 to that. Why? Well, because here's the center of here's the low E and here's the high E, right? So the center between these two, he measured from here to here. So if he takes this measurement and adds half of this string and half of this string, that will be the dead center. This is the math that brings you to the dead center. So that you add 29.5 to this number and you get 1.5115, right? This is assuming you are happy with those outside strings there where you want them. Now the math starts, okay? The math to get them there is just roughly, and then you look at it and you know how you like a guitar spaced on the outside of those 2 strings. But this is no joke. This is where the math starts. So 1.515, okay? Now how do you know the space between all the strings? Well, there's 6 strings. That's a division of 5. So you divide that by 5 and you get this. This is the magic number right here that you will use for the whole nut job. 0.302 and 1/3 of a thousandths. Guess what? In machinist terms, we don't have tools that measure that fine, so we remove that part of the number and it's 302 thousandths. So on center, every pair of strings will be 302 thousandths. But how can you measure that? We already proved you can't by like moving the thing towards the center, okay? So you're going to have to use the edges. Okay, so what's the distance between the E to the A string? Well, you know what the E string is. So that's 24 thousandths for half that string, okay? The A string's 38 thousandths, 19. That's half of that, right? That, if you add those 2 numbers together, you get 0.043 thousandths, right? You take the magic number and you minus this now. And what do you get? 259. Okay? I'm not going to show you all 6 strings because it would take forever. I'm going to show you just how to start spacing this. 259. All right? What that means that I can do now is I can take this. Sometimes when it's not zeroed, it is. Just clean it. Make sure there's no dirt on it. Well, somehow it went off, so we'll zero it, okay, and check it again. Okay, it's definitely zeroed now. So I want to set this, you're going to have to bear with me, I want to set this to 259 thousandths. And this is a tough thing to do, but you'll learn how to do it. It's sometimes you have to do it 6, 7 times. I need a half a thousandths to get my thumb to move that. Oh, I did it. Okay. Only because I do it a lot. Okay, so if it aggravates you, just stick with it. That's the difference. That's the distance right there between the E and the A. It's here, and it's here. Now, how do I go over and mark that? I can't, like, try to set this on the center of that string and the center of that string. It'll never work, right? So the real center is this number, the magic number, okay? But the new number to use is this number. And I showed you the math of how to get there. Why? Because we're going to come over here, okay? And we're going to say, where does that A go? Watch this. I can't see it now. You got the camera over my face, okay?
All right.
So you're going to push the A away. The E's not going to move. We don't care about the radius. We just want to go straight down. And we want to come over and push that string till it stops. Guess what? That's where that A string goes, okay? So what do?
Mark.
You go like this and like that. And here's where your skills come in, because now you're going to take and get a slot dead in the center of that. And very lightly, because if you're wrong, you're going to redo it again. Keep your caliper set where it is and do it till it's right. And if you get it wrong and it's a little bit off by a thousandth or two, just scrub that with a little piece of sandpaper and do it again till it's perfect. Because if you make one mistake, then one mistake, then by the time you get here, it's wrong, okay? So you just get barely a detent until that sticks there and stays there, okay? And if it's right, then you do the math for this one. What would the math be? Half a 38 and half a 28. Add them together and then minus them from the magic number. Set your caliper and slide this one over with that edge in here until it hits, okay? And when you're done, you'll have this. You'll have a guitar that plays beautifully and is a perfectly spaced nut, okay? This is no guesswork. It's not bullshit. It's you don't need, all you need is a vernier caliper and math, okay? You don't need some special tool, okay? And then everything's dead center. Your fingers are all centered. This is a 1 3/4 nut, so it probably looks very big on the camera, you know? But, you know, everything's dead center. Your fingers, even if you lay them down, their real estate is the center of the string. It's the center of the string. Your finger, you don't play your chords in here to need a graduated nut. You play your chords on the string, okay? You know, you're on the string for your chords. I mean, what's the big deal about this? You play this 6/9. Everything's on center. That's your fingers laid down, but I'm making contact on the center of that string. What do I care how this is? I got to move these 4/1000ths over all the way, you know, and then they're real close here, and that's just, I just get me off the graduated nut subject because I don't want to deal with this.
Bob, get off the graduated
This is a
nut
beauty,
subject.
huh? This is the latest one that's done. And if you wonder, hey, why do your saddles look like that instead of slanted back? Because of this. Because of this. These don't intonate like regular strings, okay? Their consistency sucks. Their quality control is garbage, but they sound better than all other strings. So if you can get past the quality control on the wrap of the balls and stuff on these strings, they will intonate different. Not because the quality is bad, superior quality. Not because the consistency is bad, but because they're a very thin core. So what you're intonating is the core. So your low E has a core the size of this G string. So it comes out about the same place. See, this one is the size of an E string. Actually, it's even smaller. It's a 10 that's in there. If you take them apart, you'll find out. Then this one is like a B string, so it lines up with the B string, where if you put like Ernie Balls or something, you'd wind up like at this angle with the G jogged way back. Well, not way back, but a little bit back. So when you see you know, and the good thing about these is they work good on a Les Paul because you only have so much room on a Les Paul, and they're almost even, you know. But I wish they would fix their craftsmanship on their quality control a little better because it really annoys me. But anyway, I hope you learned something from this. I don't need to keep all this stuff for myself. I've been doing this forever. But that's how you space the nut out. You go all the way across. You get to this one. It's the same thing. You get to these thin strings. Now, so if we knew this was...
Your hand is blocking everything.
If we knew this was right here, let's say, I can't see that accurately because I'm not. The camera's in my way. But if I were to take this and try to do this like this, not with this measurement, obviously, but with the magic number that was bigger than this, how do you know where the center of that string is? You don't know. You'd be off by 3, 4 thousandths, 5 thousandths, then you're off here, then you're off there. And none of that works.
So basically you're measuring to the edge of the string based on this,
the edge of the string with both radiuses totally out of the picture. The caliper is, that measurement's still there. So this winds up, well, it's not tight, so it's going to be all floppy. Let me tighten it back up because I'm going to erase that spot and do it where I can see better because the camera's in my way. So you just keep this flat and straight, okay? So it's not like this off the top of the radius, but it's just flat and straight to the best of your ability. And then when it touches the inside of that knife, that's it. It's
so
there.
Basically you're using the 302 thousandths as your center to center
because that is the center to center.
And then you're compensating for the width of the strings.
Mechanically, using math to do that.
Right.
Okay? So if this was a 46 and this was a 36, same difference. Now, could I put a set of 10s on this after I set it up for 11s? Yeah, because the centers are still the same. All that's different is that the slot might be bigger when I'm done with everything for more room for these. But between 46 and 48, you can go from 10s to 11s, and the string sits in the bottom of the rounded slot center. So, you know, but you start getting
so it's self-centering.
You can start getting to 8s. You might have wanted to put thinner slots, you know. But, you know, then the whole thing about how deep do the slots go? Well, that's going to be, you know, most guys already know that don't know how to center these strings, okay? They don't know this technique. They know how to get it playing right the way they like it maybe they have some stupid tool they bought from that newspaper magazine that I don't use any of those tools. I look across with my eyes and I keep playing the guitar. And I'm very forceful down here, so I don't want it like a little baby guitar like that. Some people do. Some people use really light strings. They want that action really close to the first fret. Make sure your neck's adjusted though, okay, before you do any of that, because especially if you're trying to get that close, because if you're trying to get that close, the slightest adjustment on the neck is going to take you out of that range. Look at those beautiful quarter sawn grains. Isn't that wicked? Look at the burled walnut. How about that?
What?
Is the light screwing it up? Yeah, the light's all over it. There you go. You got it right there.
Pretty.
All right. So anyway, just sharing information on proper nut spacing and how it works. And it seems complicated, but it's not. I had a friend. People call me that I've known for so many years. Always ask me a million questions about guitars all the time. Calls me the other day. He had some neck made for him for a telly that was 1 11/16. And he said, "Gee, I don't know. I might have to get rid of this neck. I don't know if I can play this." I said, "It feels too big." And I said to him, "Really?" I said, "Well, your 59 flame top and your 54 gold top. Do you have problems playing them?" He goes, "No." Well, because they're 1 11/16, so the same size as that. "Oh, I don't have trouble playing that." And I said, "Well, send me a picture of the nut. Did you make the nut?" He goes, "Yeah." It was a mess, okay? It wasn't right here, and the spacing between, that's what he didn't like about the guitar. That's why the guitar didn't feel really good, okay? I don't know about the rest of the guitar, but seeing that picture, that was it. So I explained this to him. He's been working on guitars for a long time, but trying to explain math over the phone. Anyway, he'll probably be watching this and he'll go, "Oh, that's simple. I get what he told me to write down now," because I'm showing you exactly. The first one, you add the numbers And then for each set of strings, you subtract those two numbers of half the width of each string.
So it's a different number for
Two
each
outside strings, you
space.
add the total of the half of each. And then for each one in between, you subtract. So, because you're measuring from the insides. Can you measure from the outsides and use the other end of the caliper? Yeah. And then just reverse the numbers you're adding and subtracting. But I don't see why you would bother doing it. If you use a caliper your whole life, you sort of use the inside for the you sort of have a habit of which side you measure from for what reason, If you can go inside or outside, you're probably going to go inside on the measurement because those knife edges are, they're in closer. There's less chance of error to begin with. And sliding the string back and forth, and all that. But you can do it the other way if your brain works that way. That's fine. All right. So, making a nut 101.
Nut job.
So you're going to take a piece like this. There we go. You're going to take a chunk of, I use non-bleach bone, I like it better. You're going to take a chunk of bone and make it look like that one I showed you. Don't trip on that case, that's right there. That one I showed you.
That we can't see now.
There. Yeah, well, it looks just like this one without slots in it. But this one's sitting in the guitar, so, you're going to make it look like that.
You have to curve it.
You have to curve it and slant it back, okay? Now, when I'm done with this, okay, and it's playing perfect and all sharp and ugly off the top, right? Well, and then I know the exact depth I have, so I know how much to adjust that tilt of the radius. Then I will take something like this, right? Oh, look, it's even got a piece of sandpaper on it, okay? Oh, look, it's from that magazine company. Oh, my God. It's a 12, which this guitar is, okay? And I will take this like this. I will take all the strings off, and I will adjust the tilt of my radius accordingly to what I see off the top of these strings after they're all where I want them.
So you finesse it.
And I'll keep this angle that I have this way. And, of course, I'll tape up the guitar in case I slip. And then I'll clean that down and keep putting the strings in till it's okay. I don't want them any. You don't want to string this hard. I can pop that string out of there and break the nut doing it if I was playing the guitar. So you get to know exactly how much you want to leave. Okay, and then you clean the nut this way. You round it this way. You round it this way. You see this all on YouTube. You see how to do that, all that. But no one shows you how to do this right. And when they do, it's like some stupid, like giant math graduated thing. And I can't wrap my brain around why anybody cares about graduated nut spacing. Why don't you graduate your bridge? But anyway, if all you want is 6 even spaces, I just showed you how a machinist would do that, not knowing anything about a guitar. If you said to him, and it was a perfect nut, if you said, how could I know what the space front center between these is so that I can do a stupid thing and take this and try to make pretend that I can find the center? He would go, well, you don't do it that way. I'll measure this one and I'll measure that one and then I'll measure across these and then I'll divide by 5 and then add the half the numbers, because half of the numbers bring me right back out to center. See, if you measure to that inside edge and that inside edge, right, you want to know how far it is from center, you're going to have to come out that much more. Okay, it's real simple. Once you do one, and just have it, you'll have a scrap paper every time to do your math. Once you do one, you never have to think about it again. This is something you can unlearn. When you learn how to find center or something, you can't go, how did I do that again? No, it's just so simple.
It's like riding a bike.
If you're mechanical at all, you'll never forget it. You'll know it forever. And Whitey is coming soon.
Whitey will be being played later today.
Look at that thing. Look at that beauty. I love this waterfall green. Why do we call this guitar Whitey? Not because I painted it titanium white nitro, but because you remember this piece of swamp ash.
It was very light colored.
It was the whitest looking piece of swamp ash I've ever seen in my life. So I usually name them from the pieces of wood before I even start cutting them,
Well, it's named naturally
And that's
went
Whitey.
into the milk finish.
Okay, so everybody knows now how to do a good nut job, right? Not be a nut job, but do a good nut job.
Some people can do both, Bob.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only do one thing at a time in my life now. But anyway, I thought I'd show you guys how to not do like D'Angelico and just go, it looks good. And you know what? I've played all those guitars. The guy in Scully Square did the same thing. You know, I'm from Boston. I grew up there. I was working on guitars for so many people through all the years. You know, I've seen legendary guys when I was young, and I watched how they did that. And then, you know, I learned a lot about machinists when I was young, and I was like, what are you doing that for? Why don't you just frickin' measure it? So there's some things it's easy for me to know because of my background. That might be harder for you to know, but now you know. Okay?
Now you know.
Now you know. So, hold on. What? Yeah, let me see if I can find this real quick. Hold on. Yeah.
What you got?
I want to show them something. They can freeze frame this. Here we go. Okay. Freeze frame that. There's the math from the last guitar I did with every string. That's what your paper's going to look like when you're done. Okay? Let me make sure you're not reading something from the page under by accident to confuse you. This guitar was 1.479 center from E to E. This guitar is 1.483 or something, so it's a few thousandths bigger. So it's like maybe 2 thousandths on each side. But did you get all that?
I think.
And this is the beginning math that I told you isn't all that important. That would be 0125 with 11s. And for the low E being a 48 and that being an 11, that would be 0.144 thousandths on center from the low E from the edge. But again, when you get that, use that as a guideline and go, does that look right? Are these in too far? Move them out. Move them out till they're exactly where you want them, or move them in if they're out too far at that. Because you might have a guitar with a swelled neck. Like these people put these guitars together and none of these lines are straight and all that. So that measurement right there is not etched in stone. It's where it is off the first fret, whether you like the look of that or not. You know, and whether your, you know, neck is built where it evenly slopes out. It's not over sanded on one side and more straight and less wedged, you know. So that, but there's no argument on the 5 strings in the middle. Those are where this I showed you they go. You do the math and it'll put them there for you. So you could freeze frame on that and see how I did the math for every single string. Does it take a long time? No. You saw me just do an E string at the beginning of the video. You know, a couple of minutes for each string to get your measurement, and you got a perfect nut when you're done, instead of a mess. Don't make a mess. Peace out.